our weekly show that talks about art, everything to do with art, music, dance, film, and the entertainment industry at large. Yes, today we are a man less, but I'm sure we are capable to be able to drive this show until the end. I'm going to start with the usual routine. My guys are going to introduce themselves and we'll kick off. I'll start with you, Andrew.
Oh, like you already introduced me by saying Andrew.
Okay.
Andrew Kagwa, my as a culture journalist. Welcome.
On my right.
Yeah, hello guys. My name is Patrick Sentongo. Glad to be here.
Isaac Sejongwe. Nice to be here.
Okay, the man who knows a lot about today's main topic because he has been there, done that. We shall
managed.
He has been working in the industry.
Yes, he's been in the industry for quite a minute, so he's going to be very resourceful for us today. But as usual, we are going to first discuss some of the key topics that have defined the week in terms of art. Mm-hmm. And Andrew, we had the Uganda Film Festival nominations taking place on Monday.
Yeah.
What do we need to know from that?
The Uganda Film Festival 2025 is here, and they announced the nominees for this year's award gala. The award gala is on June 6th.
Yeah.
And apparently they received 362 entries, and 330 of those were from Uganda. Okay. Now, the thing about, for people that have been following Uganda's film industry the past few years, not even just the past few years, for over 10 years back, there was a time when filmmakers were funding their own films and they were doing amazing work. And then around 2020, MultiChoice came into the picture because COVID happened, and then we stayed home and we noticed, they did not have enough content. So MultiChoice came on board, started paying filmmakers to make films. Okay. So between 2021 to last year, 80% of the submission in awards, in festivals, were films that had been commissioned by MultiChoice. Then MultiChoice kind of cut on that support when they closed Maisha Magic Movies and Power Magic Local. So the films they contributed to or commissioned kept going down until last year. I think the last batch was nominated, and this year there wasn't a single submission of a film by MultiChoice. So like the quality this year, like you have two or three outstanding films that are good quality wise and acting wise, but most of the others are like you could say bagambye tugende n'ekiriwo. Okay. Yeah.
UFF, you wanted to come in, Patrick?
No, UFF. I want to ask Kagwa a few questions. Does the budget play a big role in the quality of the movies that are produced?
Yes. Okay, it's a yes and no. The budget plays a big role when it comes to the equipment you're going to use and everything, and the actors you're going to use. For example, if you have the right budget, probably you can get Michael Wauyo on your set. You can get Nakaziba to do your makeup. You can get the best you can. When you do not have the budget, you will not be able to hire any of those people. But then again, the people that can work with a very little budget are still the people that have been around the industry for long. Say Nathan Magola can work with a very little budget because he has his camera, he has his own sound studio. So he's basically self-contained to work, but then he's still one of those people that did not write a film because he's very commercial when he's working. He wants to know where he's taking his film. So the money not being around for people to make films gave opportunity to people that funded their own projects who are working with a katono ketulinawo, and that katono could be a Canon camera, not a Red. So at the end of the day, you see that coming out in the quality of work you receive.
My only concern with the organizers, which is UCC, what is their what is the arrangement with a certain section of filmmakers, particularly local filmmakers, that have, since the year started, been on a cast, all on, you know, a call to boycott the particular awards?
Yeah. Now you see that's a very funny thing about the Ugandan film industry, not film, Uganda's art industry, that you have people boycotting, and then the same people boycotting like kind of submit their films. One, they are very open to dialogue, at least according to what I heard. They're open to dialogue, but they still did not stop those people from submitting their films. Personally, if you're to ask me if boycotting the awards is valid right now, I would tell you no. Like, I think I was the very first person to ask filmmakers to boycott UFF, and that was as early as 2016.
Before you started working with them?
No, I will explain.
I'm going to come in a little bit. Let Kagwa first.
So in 2016, I asked filmmakers to boycott the film festival because I felt like the film festival was not serving its purpose. One, we used to go to cinemas and they were empty because Ugandan films used to screen during the day, and then
when people are at work.
And so like films would screen for cleaners and everything. And one, there wasn't really a purpose. It's not like you are winning and your film was being taken to Zanzibar. It's not like you are winning and your film was being taken, like there wasn't a purpose when it came to the festival. So I asked filmmakers to boycott the awards. And at that time, filmmakers refused. And you could say UFF also acted very quickly, because there we asked filmmakers to boycott was there UFF introduced cash prizes.
Oh.
So by the time we went for those awards...
So it is the cash prizes that got you working with UCC now, around those awards?
No, like I'm still telling you. So...
I hope you don't forget to answer that.
Yes. So we come all these years, and for all those years I've been asking filmmakers, I've been telling filmmakers, like, I think you still have a chance to make a case with UCC. And most of them didn't, until they got to that position when UCC started funding their trips out of the country, started funding the making of some of their films. So they got to the point where they are too intertwined.
They reached a common ground.
They are too intertwined with UCC that they can no longer really exist without UCC. Yet in 2016, if they were like, we're not giving them our films. 2016, you had Hassan Mage. He was one of the best filmmakers. You had Mulindwa Richard. You had the Nisha Kalemas. That if you had a festival where these people were not, people would question, like, which kind of festival are we having? But then right now they are too intertwined, and then, you know, the festival was promoted more than the personalities were promoted, that it is at that level where people are just willing to have a festival. They don't care who is in it. So if you boycott right now, there is still a filmmaker who is not known, who is going to submit their film, and the public will not care. And it's the same thing that happened this year. It's not like people boycotted, it's just that the famous Nawi Souls and the Watts did not make films. So we ended up with films from filmmakers we do not know, but the festival is going to go on.
Okay.
That's the reason why I say right now, it's not good to ask for a boycott.
Okay. At what point did you start working with those guys?
I'm not working with them, I'm working with an agency that works for them.
Okay, he was invited. I happened to attend that press conference.
He's the one who wrote the press release.
His invite.
Yeah.
And then
kati ffe lwaki tewatuyita ssebo bulijjo tetumanyi totwagala
Sajja yampita. I came in a little bit late. So waliwo omukyala yali akola submissions. Omwami oyo n'awanika n'abuuza ekibuuzo. Actually teyabuuza kibuuzo. Ya clarifyinga ebimu ku bintu ebiri mu film. Omukyala n'amugamba, omukyala akola ku UCC erinnya ndyerabira ajja mutugamba. Omukyala n'amugamba n'amu-invitinga okujja okukola nabo. So he hasn't yet started working with them. But there are plans.
It's in the pipeline.
Okay,
the
exact thing that happened is it was a clarification of two of the nominees this year for Best Director. One, Hassan Mageye, I think was a nominee in 2015, which is like 10 years ago. And then Rehema Namfuka, who happens to be the only female nominated this year, was still the very first woman to win the award for Best Director for Veronica's Wish. Like, it was kind of a fact that needed to be out there because it was easy for people to miss. But then, since I'm also one of the people that are promoting one of the upcoming films called Slam Bomba, which I later got to learn was commissioned by the Content Support Fund, I think, Content Support Program, which is by UCC. Like, I later got to learn that some of the information I've been sharing with the filmmaker has been shared to UCC, like the number of Bibandas in Machinje Division, the number of Bibandas in Rubaga Division. So that's when she was like, in fact, we've learned that there are this number of Bibandas. Andrew is doing such a good job. You should come and join us. So I was invited, not that I took the job up.
But there are plans you're going to take that job.
Will you deny the job
I do
anyway?
not even know which job it is.
But you're willing to take that job. Let's move forward.
The Andrew Mwenda of 2005, the Andrew Mwenda of today. You can just juxtapose that with the same. Okay, so guys, we have been following Fik Gaza for a minute, and he was given bail. He was released from police. He was released from police custody. Is that the end of his battles, or it's just the beginning? Isaac, I'll start with you.
Which battles are you talking about?
You can enlighten us, because he has been in and out of problems.
I think it's not the end of his battles, like you've stated. It's just that for now, alimu break their battles ezo. But once he settles in, give him like 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Okay.
You'll still hear the same things that got back got him back to jail. So I think it's just a break. Manye komera litereezaamu you saw Fik Gaza for once being a humble man.
I saw a video of him today, and he looked different.
And I also saw Alien Skin being humble in that court for the first time.
But Isaac, let me ask you something. What do you think has changed? Because I could argue that at their peak, both Bobby Wine and Chameleon might have done worse. How come they seemed very untouchable? And today, literally everyone is touchable. Like,
that's a good one.
Because do you know that Bebe Cool was arrested and they did not even touch his lock, not even one? You remember when he went on to do that song? Yes,
prison for no reason.
Today, Alien Skin went in, and trust me, he came back with a bare head.
For starters, if I remember correctly, Bebe Cool was put behind bars at the airport. It wasn't Al Luzira or it was at the airport. Yeah, it was just a simple detention.
It was contained at that point.
It was a simple detention.
If you got all those two songs because of simple
of course,
detention.
he used to that opportunity.
There were two songs,
Prison for no reason and
Mokome.
yes. So you have to use that opportunity to
typical
release.
Okay, guys. Last week we talked about Omega 256 and her, controversies around the concert and the promoter Norbert. Isaac told us that the event would eventually happen on, I think, on 2nd May. Within this week, I think on Monday, we saw that she had parted ways with the promoter Norbert, and now
she called off the show.
Yes, and Patrick, on the show last week, you are one of the people who advised her in that direction.
That it wasn't too late.
Yes.
And
What do you have to say about
to clarify, the concert hasn't been called off.
The concert was called off.
It's still going to happen, but on a later date.
The one of the concert that we talked about last week was called off.
Yes.
So me, I'm just glad that she took my advice. Yeah. She took my advice. I told her it was not so late for her to call off the show. I actually, all the two things I told her, she did. I told her it's not so late for you to call off the show too. It's the earlier you cut ties with the promoter, the better. The only thing she did for me, I told her there needs to be no pressure. I don't know if by pushing the show to September, she has a certain kind of arrangement to work out herself and the entire team. I don't know if September is time good enough for her, but ideally, there is really no pressure.
I think if she pushes Ndio Munyankore, I think the song is called Munyankore. I think if she pushes it well, yeah, that can dig to the core. Yeah, because it's a good song.
And then the people she's working with this time round, she's been working with them now. She said it's her team. It's a management.
They were the guys behind the social
evolution. Yes. Okay. So they understand each other.
Yes.
So I think that the show is going to work out.
Exactly.
Because they're going to offer her the things that nobody was not offering her.
But you see, one of the things we need to look out for is our promoters at times can be saboteurs in a way. Because Norbert announced that the show was back on.
Yes.
And some people inside us that were still talking to Omega called her and they actually found out she had no intentions of having the show. But at that time she had not talked to Norbert. So Norbert, I think, somehow learned that she wasn't willing to go ahead with the show.
And came out with the announcement.
He created a new narrative now that the concert will not happen because the sales were bad. And he had a narrative that only, is it one person or two had bought online tickets, which narrative came up after he learned that she was intending to cancel the show in the press conference.
Which she subsequently, for me, I think Norbert is a danger to himself.
Yeah.
And the idea is Omega has good music. For me, I've listened to some of her music, I think like 2-3 songs. And also this latest you talked about, Munyankore. She just needs to
with B2C.
Yeah, she just needs to push, have her team organized. I think these are some good months apart for her to prepare and deliver something nice. Yeah.
Quite ironically, I don't know any of that lady's songs, but I wish her the best nonetheless.
You don't know this, yeah.
Maybe if I listen to the music, I could. Yeah. Okay, guys. This week actually, I think on Tuesday, the National Planning Authority and UNCC, Uganda National Culture Center, sat at Serena to talk everything that every artist wanted to listen to. They talked things that they sounded beautiful. We are going to improve the industry. We are going to remove taxation for some of the music equipment that come in here, cameras. We are going to improve the policies. We are going to improve the infrastructure. I listened to Professor Mwa, the ED for the Planning Authority, sounding like someone who should have come into this industry a very long time ago, saying, I think, the right things for the very first time. But it was just any of those other events where a paper is presented, a report is presented, a study was done, and so a picture is painted that the future is brighter. Should we now clap our hands that finally the solution for art in Uganda has finally come? Andrew, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's good you've started with me.
Why?
No, because I'm imagining if we started there, we're not going to get the right picture.
It was intentional. It was intentional.
Actually, I think I needed to start so that I clarify.
You will clarify.
No, you will clarify.
Okay.
You are an organizer.
You could even sit this out.
No.
You could sit this out.
Actually, those are some of the issues I want to demystify.
But anyway, with my experience of covering this industry and an experience of sitting through many of such meetings, like I've had very, very many beautiful stories, many amazing meetings where papers have been presented. In fact, I think that's how we became friends with Honorable Rachel Magwola, because at one time we had to sit down and be like, we've been at many of these meetings together. What exactly happens after these meetings are done? And when it comes to this one, I think the biggest problem we have is whenever these things are being discussed, the people that they are supposed to directly benefit either do not show up or they are not invited. I do not know what of the two happens. For the artists, I mean the ones that sing, I know for those ones, whenever you invite them for something, they will not show up, regardless of how much you've told them it's important, unless you say wajabayo gavana sent. For some reason, they will show up. But if it's presenting something that Echijo Bayamba, they will never show up. So I'm still very skeptical about this. I think the things that were said in absence, because you were not invited, you only found out about it and you're like, so who are the people behind it? Or who was there? And then you see the people that were there, you see Makalos and you're like, he has my number. You see Daniel Kazibwe, you're like, okay, like, yeah, he's usually where confusion and that is, but he also has my number. And then you see,
a member of this panel.
A member of this panel, and you're like, yeah, he's usually where Kazibwe is, where there's also confusion of the artists, but he has my number as well.
Is it excuse me, is it fair to be disrespected on this panel chair?
Who is being disrespected? Disrespecting and just
my lawyers will serve this show.
So at the moment, I'm waiting to see if anything is going to come out of this, because we've had very many
of those
of such.
Okay. Can I pick it up from
not
there?
yet, sir.
No.
When I was watching, because I watched the seminar or symposium, whatever you want to call it, it was live on TV. And when the part where Professor Mvola was talking about the plight of artists, especially musicians, there's somewhere he mentioned that a musician, for an artist to benefit from what they have, from what they are doing, they have to invest a lot of money first without necessarily knowing what is going to come out of it. You don't know whether the song will be appreciated by the public, but you have to shoot a music video of about 5 million plus. You have to pay the producer, the person who wrote the song, promote the song, and all of that. Yet, the infrastructure as it is does not support that artist to create and at the end of it benefit a lot of money or some money from that project. As he was saying all of that, I saw Bebe Cool nodding in agreement, as if to say the professor was speaking his language. But then I remembered that there was, and Isaac, you're going to clarify this, there's a rumor or an assumption that Bebe Cool got money and bought equipment to make videos, for shooting videos from government, from State House. Shouldn't he be crucified first before nodding in agreement? Isn't he part of the problem, Isaac? Musicians have gotten equipment in the industry.
I don't know if
but Bebe Cool, I don't know how far he went with using that equipment.
Many artists benefit from this government through handouts. Some just visit the president, they ask what they want. Some went there, Khalifa Aganaga went there and asked for a scholarship.
Yes.
Bebe Cool went there and said the industry needs what?
Cameras.
But how far with that? How far has that helped the industry? Because one would imagine that was probably a personal.
I know most of them appear as though they are asking for the industry, but at the end of the day, they are the personal interests they submit to the president. The studio is there, the equipments are there, but the conditions to get those equipments is totally different from what he submitted.
Okay.
Because he says to record a song at his studio, you need to pay the producer. Yet he said that studio is what?
Free.
It's free. So I don't know how much you have to pay the producer to produce for your song, but you have to pull some funds to get what? Yes, to get to use the studio.
Okay. So Patrick,
Yes, sir.
have we finally figured it out? As someone who is part of one of these organizations, UNCC in particular, have we finally figured out how artists can be helped and how they can benefit from their work?
Thank you, sir. One, I will start by demystifying some of the things that have been talked about here. One, the National Development Policy Forum, the event that happened at the Kampala Serena, UNCC was not an organizer, not even a partner at that.
What was its role?
That event was solely organized by the National Development Authority.
National Planning Authority.
National Planning Authority, NPA,
Yes.
as the government institution under the Minister of Finance that is responsible for planning of the country. So over the years, there has been talk, and the reality is, this sector has not been well funded by government. So as a result, the outcry from the creative practitioners, artists, they were saying we need government to step up and invest because they are taking some money from within this industry. And two, if they supported us, there is actually more potential because the industry has already proven that it is something as per the GDP numbers, if you look at them. So as per what the executive director of the National Planning Authority, Dr. Joseph Mubawala, said that prompted them to give a more keen eye into this creative sector. And the results were in the affirmative, that the sector has potential, and it is the reason that they put in some much more effort to do research and find out the possibilities of government. One, picking money from within the industry, but then also having a budget set aside for them. Part of the issues that were discussed is that now the structures, all the arts industry is going to find its way into the National Development Plan 5, I think, which is the one that is current, being implemented, working out. Two, the sector is going to find its way into the national budget. Over the years, there has been funding into the creative and arts sector has been below 1%. And the artists' cry has always been that we need much more funding into our institutions. So ideally, that is part of what this event was about. The idea of who was invited and who was not invited, you saying that I have all your phone numbers, this is what happened. The event was particularly organized by NPA. What NPA did is they reached out to some structures within this industry to which they asked that they call all stakeholders. So two big questions are you part of the stakeholders? I want to believe the answer is yes. Two, if you're part of the stakeholders, this industry over the years, the structures have been streamlined. Every person who claims to be an artist or a stakeholder within this industry, you must be tied up somewhere within the structures. Say, we guys here are journalists. There are journalist associations that are within this industry. And I think they fall under the National Culture Forum. It's where they associate. And the National Culture Forum reached out to all leaderships of these associations, which leads me to the next question. Are you part of the Journalists Association under?
I never thought Patrick would ever sound so political.
I know, but anyway.
The idea, no, before you interrupt, I don't want to use that to justify the reasons
He's asking the questions and then he's answering the questions.
As to why you are not invited, the idea is I knew about it. I was in position to extend an invitation to you guys. I actually posted it on my platforms, particularly on my WhatsApp, but I didn't have the moral authority to invite. So ideally you shouldn't point the guns to me. You should point the guns to NPA, who were the sole organizers of this event. To answer the question as I finish, is this the Is this the end of everything? The answer is yes, and the answer is no. Ideally, government works with policy, and then government processes are not as fast as people might want them to be, because one of the issues that were raised there, I'll quote Dr. Muvawala, the NPA boss. He said one of the challenges that the creative sector is facing in Uganda today is the powers seem to be falling under the mandate of UNCC, but the act of UNCC has not been amended to bring it up to speed, up to date, to give it the powers.
The problem.
To give it the powers. People got it wrong because people thought that by him saying UNCC is the problem, he was crucifying it in that sense. But his idea, and he further explored and explained it, his idea was the act is quite out. It's actually totally outdated because it is not giving UNCC the power to do its mandate. So his call to the board, which is 1 year and one year into office, was try to do everything possible so that you get this act amended, so that UNCC is empowered to do their job. Two, why I'm saying now to justify why it is not going to be as fast as it is. Government works with policy and also the timing. We are now moving into the election season. So at what point are all these things going to be done to amend this, to get people together and all, you know? So the processes are going to be a little bit slow, but at least we are moving. It's a step in the right direction. If these conversations are now happening, we are not here 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Yeah, that's all I can say.
You see, still about that, like, one, I like the fact that the conversations are happening, but these conversations have happened
for a minute.
They've been happening for a very long time. And I think one of the biggest problem we've had when these conversations are happening is artists usually ask for funding, but they do not even know what exactly they want.
They want to do with the funding.
Because you see, one thing you see about farmers is farmers will ask, and they will even actually tell you what happens when what they ask for has been implemented. Farmers will ask for a better road network, and they'll tell you when you have a better road network, it's easier for crops to move from here, from point A to point B. Our artists keep asking for funding, and we do not seem to be very clear about what exactly.
I will answer that.
To add on to what Kagwa is saying, my only challenge about this whole thing is the structures. How many associations do we have in the arts industry? You know that the Chameleon Trio all started associations during lockdown.
Yeah, my
you understand?
brothers.
Yes, they started associations.
Are they formally registered?
Individual associations. So you look at UMA, you look at the Federation, you look at all these other associations. So if the money comes in, where exactly is it going to go?
Okay.
And besides that, then you look at the UMF, you look at National Culture Forum. Like there are many associations, there are many federations.
Does the Federation of Beno and Chibuka still exist?
Yes, the
Performing
rights, something, yeah.
Okay, to answer that, guys, this is it. In the recent past, much of the funding that has been coming to this sector, although some has been through the rightful structures of how it should be, from the ministry at the top, their work is strategic, really, through the structures under UN to UNCC and then to these other lower associations. The idea is much of the money that has come into the industry in the recent past has also been as handouts, money given to particular individuals, which has brought about very many of the chaos that we've been seeing. The idea today is now with this event that actually happened over the National Planning Authority, NPA, the idea is National Planning Authority is the institution. It's actually under the Ministry of Finance, which plans for the entire country. This is the institution. The idea is, with all the issues that the arts and the creative culture sector, all the issues that they have been facing, the idea is government has now picked interest, and who has picked the interest? The most rightful institution, which is the National Planning Authority. So for me, I believe it is so fast for us, or it is so early for us to determine the outcome. But the idea is the right institution has picked interest, and they have dug deep to understand, to solve most of the issues. You're saying that now where is this money going to go? Who is going to receive the money? The National Planning Authority will come out with a clear plan of how this money will be injected into the industry.
I can understand that, but you see, it's the art industry. It's the most dynamic industry you can
Yes.
ever
The
think
most
of.
dynamic and disorganized.
And very disorganized. Like at times it's not a situation of where the money is going, but do you actually know? Because I've seen this industry being misplanned for.
Yes.
Like someone wakes up and is like, we need studios. We do not need studios. Someone walks up and we need cameras. We do not need cameras.
That's very true.
So
That's very true. The idea is, that's very true, I will concur. The idea is, in the past, these have been industry leaders who are artists themselves. We all know the problems of artists, okay? So today, the people who are now picking interest in this industry are planners, one by profession and by experience. This is an institution. Of course, they are working hand in hand with artists' leadership, but it's not solely artists who are handling their issues. And that's why I'm saying that the National Planning Authority, just like it does with agriculture, with other
Because
sectors, oil
agriculture is
and
more
gas,
structured.
the idea is we are moving in the right direction. NPA, at the end of it all, they will come up with a clear structure and plan of how this
Thank you.
money
Thank you,
will be
Patrick.
injected. And because it's government money, it will be followed up to the dot.
I know this topic. You can
You're
speak
quite
until
passionate
tomorrow.
about this.
Yes, but we
Why are you passionate about
We should
this?
find another day and discuss.
Because-
and discuss
yes.
mainly.
And I am passionate about it because I attended the event.
Not just that.
No.
But we can move on.
Moving on, guys, we had another controversy. When it comes to controversies, Uganda's entertainment industry keeps giving every day and every day.
Yeah.
Somehow we had a war between, I don't know if I should call it a war, but a rift between Rabadaba and APAS. Rabadaba, who has been off the scene for I don't know how many years.
He's still off the scene.
Okay, yeah, who continues to be off the scene, picked up a battle or a fight with APAS. What happened, Isaac, if you could kick us off?
An interview happened. Actually, 2 interviews. One was via Zoom, because Rabadaba is not in the country. And
He's
one
in the
was
US,
live.
he's in
He's in
London.
the UK. And one was in studio, EPAS. By the look of things, EPAS has always had a grudge on Rabadaba because of what transpired, like previously. According to EPAS, there is a show, a Chris Martin show.
Yeah.
I think the last time Chris Martin performed.
27.
It's about 10 years.
No.
How
2017.
many times has Chris Martin
He has
been
been here
A
like,
couple of times.
Why
the
is so
first concert
surprised?
was the Total Flow
yes.
at Freedom City.
That is the one I think EPAS was referring to. The one in...
Did he perform? He didn't perform.
Okay.
Because EPAS said he was supposed to be the headlining
Headline.
act before Chris Martin. And then one of the performers was Rabadaba. So Rabadaba comes on stage. He was supposed to perform before EPAS, but he prolonged his performance. You understand? EPAS did not what? Perform.
So was that 2019?
I'm not so sure. So he has always had that grudge.
It must
Because
have been because
because by then he was still an upcoming artist, and you know how hungry upcoming artists are on that big stage.
Why then would he be the headliner?
I don't know.
No, the idea, is that the show that happened close to 7-8 years ago?
I'm not so
Yes,
sure.
I
That should
think
be because in the NTV interview...
No, the idea is, if you remember when EPAS had just come around 2014 with this song of
Tuli Kubigere.
Tuli Kubigere and I'm not in the
Loving.
Those 2 songs of his did well in, where does Chris Martin come from?
Jamaica.
In Jamaica. And what was that, those actually, even when Chris Martin came, he's one of the guys that, I remember that interview he did with NTV The Beat at the time, he sampled out, he singled out EPAS as the guy that has the future in this kind of thing, and was like, we've had some of his music play in this particular sports scene, and for a long time, EPAS had that as something to brag about. So him being a headline on that show is something that could have had, backed up by such a background.
And then Rabadaba says the reason why he took a back step was because he was not appreciated enough, and he had to leave room. He had to leave room for these other artists to give us bubblegum music so that he gets appreciated.
He kind of said it like he had to step away for us to
appreciate
how
realize
bad
how-
it can get.
Yes.
He wanted us to miss him.
Yeah.
This did not
Have
settle
we
down
missed
with
him
who?
though?
With EPAS.
No.
Have
So
we missed him?
this did not settle down with who? With EPAS. He was like, Rabba Dabba referred
The entire
industry, including himself.
Okay.
is that dancehall?
Yes, dancehall especially.
And you see, like you're saying it did not sit down well with EPAS. Trust me, when I saw that interview, it didn't sit down well
With you as
me.
well.
Why?
Because one,
That's of entitlement, a virtual big brand mentality
yeah,
of a kind.
one
But
by
these
the
artists,
time
so
by the
you would
time
expect such
Rabba
things.
Dabba left, the last song he had given us was
Portion.
Love Portion.
Love Potion, which came like an eclipse. He had given us a lot of songs that were bouncing. So for him to say he wasn't appreciated enough, he had to take a step back so that we can see how bad it can get.
That's him lying to himself.
That one, not him just like, he's disrespecting
Us.
the people that have actually stayed around and done it.
Yeah.
I agree. I entirely agree with you. But we should remember these are artists. He will say anything that he wants, anything that settles.
And I mean,
well
that's
with him.
Rabba Dabba. You know Rabba Dabba?
They
always-
always brag. They will always brag.
If
You
you
understand?
brag,
But Isaac, has
Be
Rabba
ready for
Dabba
the fire.
always been that chaotic and
Yes, he has always been
arrogant
chaotic.
like that?
Yes, he
Why are you
has.
asking Isaac particularly?
Yes, he has, because at one time,
he was there in his the formative years of Rabba Dabba's
at
career.
one time,
You made Rabba
he
Dabba.
kind of,
Is he the man? Is that the man you met so many years ago?
let me first finish my submission.
Okay.
At one time, he tried to force beef with Good Life. Yes. And he did a song called Tonkwatako, Tonsobola.
Don't kwataku.
Yeah.
Tonsobola. Using guys that resemble
Reddy
Reddy
and
and
Weasel,
Weasel in the video. You understand? Because he knew beef kind of works in this industry
And more so at the time.
at that time. You understand? Because those years were the epitome of Uganda's music industry.
Yes. Yeah.
You understand? So that is Rabba Dabba. And you remember, he said, Mwana wa Mwana.
But
They are
when
artists.
you think about it, Rabba Dabba's introduction to this industry, okay, he had had a verse on a song with Sabiti Brand, Mackenzie, but then the
Sembera.
song that, Sembera, but the song that really registered Rabba Dabba on the industry was Ability, which Ability was actually hitting at...
No, it was Gwechidi.
Bochiri was
Bochiri.
before.
I feel like
By the
Bochiri
time Rabba
came
Dabba
after.
does ability,
No.
he had
He
been
had-
here for some years.
Yes,
with
Bochiri,
around
Bochiri.
Because I know he had done a
Actually,
couple of
Ability,
verses on other people's
Ability,
songs.
Ability is one of the last projects he did that of his hit songs. Of his
But
catalog.
anyway, the thing about like Ability was hitting at Bebe Cool.
Yes.
And like Rabba Dabba technically had nothing against
Exactly.
Bebe Cool.
Yes.
And you're like, wait, why are you actually on this song?
Well, the idea is someone, when I watched that interview, someone in the comment section who I think, I want to share with you guys, who I think is a Rabba Dabba diehard, posted something like, well, okay, EPAS, your EPAS, yes, you had even a successful concert and all that, but only 4. Actually, no, he mentioned 5 songs of Rabba Dabba, and he said, just these 5 songs, and on any given day, just one of those songs can eat up your entire music career.
You know,
And I wanted to just share with you guys, is it that, has EPAS had music that, okay, if we are to look at the catalog, putting other factors constant, when you look at, let's say that Rabba Dabba's top 5 songs, if I'm not mistaken, as the, actually it was a lady who put them below, they are his biggest hits. And if we put EPAS's top, let me say 5 songs, were they as big?
One, there are 2 things to consider. One, Rabba Dabba was a hot kid at the time of Uganda, at the hottest
peak.
time for Ugandan music generally.
So it's not fair to compare the 2 under
like
that.
we
category?
love that era so much that we eat up everything that came, even if it's Diamond Oscar.
Yeah.
We love everything that came out of that era.
Even if it's Phantom
in that
Robins.
generation.
Even if it's Phantom Lovings.
Guys, we are going to discuss more of Rabba Dabba in the topic. So,
Anyway, good thing is, this, if it is to happen, I think this is going to be one of the best battles
Omusajja anavaayo era ndani.
It
If
might
it happens,
be very uneven.
and I think it would be even.
It might be.
By the way, talking of
uneven.
it as a battle, it is a sellable one.
It's a sellable one, but it could be very uneven. One person could leave the other one on stage.
It is okay.
Rabadaba could leave a person.
Rabadaba could leave a person.
But let's
stage.
continue, guys. We had the story that controlled media, social media this week has been the return of Jose Chameleone from the USA back to his homeland, Uganda. Last week we predicted a few things, some of which came to pass. One of the things Isaac predicted was that the legend, as people call him, would not receive a heroic welcome. Let's start from there. Was the welcome heroic?
No.
Why? Why do you say so?
I've attended some of the welcomes, particularly. You see, we've not had very many in the recent times, very many of our Ugandan celebrities being welcomed. But I will openly say that Eddie Kenzo is among the very few that has had not once, not twice, not thrice, a couple of those welcomes at the airport.
Is his BET...
Even from you remember when he had just separated with Rema? There is that welcome. I think he had received an award, I forget the name. So Rema puts up the post that they have separated when Eddie Kenzo is out. So he cries on phone. Muzata abuses him when he's abroad. So he cried while he was away, saying, Uganda government, where are you? Now that welcome coming back, I attended that one. The one actually that he says Bobby Wine didn't welcome him, that one. The one of the BET, and the one I think after... There are like three of them.
I think the biggest welcome we've had is of Gaetano from...
Yeah, that's what I said in the recent... No, that's what I said in the most recent times. So to compare the ones of the most recent times and the one of Jose Chameleone, this wasn't a heroic welcome.
Chameleone's welcome was not
heroic.
Was not a success.
Yeah.
First because
it
was poorly organized. You remember it was short notice. They just wake up.
Even they changed the date.
They just wake up, they say, let us go to the airport. Secondly, it rained. Then thirdly, the man himself said it. He was not welcomed by the what? The people he was expecting.
The federation.
The federation did not welcome him back.
For me, I think also there was an issue with it being a Saturday.
Now, I was a bit annoyed with Chameleone. With his legendary status, these are petty things he should be complaining about. The same thing Kenzo complained about.
Why
Bobby Wine did not welcome him. He's not supposed to welcome you. He has other things to do. Kenzo was not in Kampala. He was in West Nile, in Yumbe. You understand? And then he says none of the people in the federation welcome. Palacio is one of the members in the federation.
You understand? Vice president, not just
perhaps
a member.
Palacio came as a brother.
It is okay, but still he's a member of the federation. It is.
But Andrew, sorry to cut you short, Isaac. Andrew, for a person whose status has been revered for so many years, should it matter whether or not it's a Saturday or that it has rained? Shouldn't his fans just come organically to
But the reason for the welcome also
see,
matters.
The same way you ask if people should show up regardless of what, it's the same reason why him being welcomed or not being welcomed shouldn't matter. Like your Chameleone, for God's sake, you've made all that music, nothing is going to take it away. Yeah. Even if you're welcomed by just one person, nothing is going to take away the over 15 years of music you've done. And you see,
15, 25.
25. And you see, personally, if you ask me, only one person has been welcomed in Uganda, that's Gaetano. Yeah. Like all these others, it's been a lot of
in an era where we didn't have anything like social media.
Like it's like Gaetano, for some reason, we knew we were told he's going to come back. They did not tell us to go.
We went. That excitement.
People went to, because I remember I was coming from, like I used to do holiday classes from...
These are 22 years ago.
Yeah, from KCCA, the library. Because we were paid for to go and do remedials, but we used to eat the money and then you just go and pay like 500 shillings to study from the KCCA library. So we were coming from the library and someone told us Gaetano is coming back, they are going to the Sheraton. I do not even know how that person got the news. We went to the Sheraton and you could not pass. And by that time, he wasn't even anywhere near the Sheraton. Like, over he was where, because like we were there for about an hour. And then when they came, we couldn't even see Gaetano because there was this sea of people that were moving with the car. And
from Entebbe.
In one of the podcasts,
no,
actually,
they kept people kept joining
at whatever point.
At whatever point.
In one of the podcasts, he says it took him 5 hours from the airport to Sheraton.
Yeah, that's true.
You can imagine that distance. Yeah,
all these others have been organized by like guys
Your
show up,
teammates,
come.
So
like,
guys, don't we love our legend as
No,
much as
the idea for me is Chameleon on any given day would be hugely welcomed. The only idea here was what was the reason for the welcome.
yeah, what was the reason for the welcome?
It's not that the man was twali tumulaba ng'alira ng'akuba ndongo ng'ali kunywa buntu. So what was the reason?
And then he comes back, holds a press conference, goes to the bar.
What I said here last week was before the man reaches home, we'll have to first perform. It happened.
And he
After
didn't
the press
perform.
conference at Nonivi, he didn't go home. He stayed around town. And in the night, he was on the mic. Nemanya.
yes.
Nemanya.
So, is that how hungry Chameleon is for the stage?
Not hungry.
It is nothing to do with hunger. It has everything to do with him being so negligent of his life.
True.
And it will be on him.
It's not just being, it's not hungry, it's him being careless, it's him being unprofessional, and it's even us as the industry being unprofessional. Like, who put him on stage? Who was the music director that day?
He doesn't need one.
He doesn't need what happened
because I know if it is your stage, you can actually stop him from going on.
Who was the who was the muscle?
Like
to
I
stop
said,
Chameleon?
I saw Maurice Kyria glance at Chameleon. It's like, the legend is here, and he moved on. So that's the very first time I noticed, like, wow, so Chameleon can actually be as close to the stage, and he doesn't get to step on stage.
The other thing, ever since he stepped in Kampala on Saturday, every night since then, he has been somewhere performing.
And apparently I heard he announced he will have a concert.
Of course.
And then, before he even announced, no, he didn't announce. It was, no, he put up
a post.
Yes, but again, he said he's here for a short time. He's going back to the US for more treatment. Like, he hasn't healed.
Maybe that's
he said he just missed home.
Then we shall welcome him in a heroic way.
He just missed home, so he's here briefly. He'll go back to the US.
Okay, guys.
But then before, which treatment has Chameleon been receiving? Like I mean, let's be serious.
I only saw one picture of him in the hospital.
The idea
I don't know if it was for promo purposes or.
I think we have seen more pictures of him on stage than in hospital. Okay, guys, I think we'll have Chameleon in some part of today's main topic. And speaking about today's main topic, we want to trace back Uganda's music from the post-millennial era. We're talking about the early 2000s. How music in Uganda has evolved throughout that period, what shaped music then, and we want to relate that to music today. I'm sure all of you have been to bars where they play music from 2003, 2004. I'm talking about Blue 3, you're talking about the early years of Good Life. We're talking about Mr. Semakula. We're talking about
famous top 3.
The famous top 3 who kicked off that era. Shanks VVD. We come a little bit further when we had Tonix, we had
Coco Finger, Eddie Kenzo.
And whenever they play that music, somehow people feel different. There's that nostalgia that hits you, and you're like, okay, now this was the era. So we want to relate that era to how music is today, what changed, and how can today's musicians appreciate that and probably pick a leaf. So but we want us to start from then, 2000. What happened in music in 2000? Which people ruled that era, and how was music done then? I don't know who wants to pick up that topic from that part. Maybe Andrew, you could start us off.
Like Andrew, who was at the KCCA library in the early 2000s.
You must have crossed paths.
He must have crossed paths with this guy. So he's the right person.
One, I don't think I was eligible to attend anything at that time, but there were things I did get a chance to attend, like when Cindy was first unveiled at the Capital FM.
Which year are we talking about now?
That was 2003 when they did that Capital FM Coca-Cola something such, not the Blue 3-1. And just how things were easy those times is that the unveiling of the winners of the competition, where there was Kefa, Dorothy Bukira,
Kefa Sempa.
Kefa
The guy who won that
the guy who won,
he actually died.
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah, there was Kefa, there was Dorothy Bukira, there was Sarah Zawede.
Hey, Sarah Zawede was in that lot.
Was in that competition, and then there was Cindy. That event happened during the started at midday and was done by 5 at the City Square. Like City Square was that open that people would do things there. So like there's those things that happened during the that I remember, like you are passing by and you're like, nah, whatever I've been going to do, let me first stand here until this is done. So there were things I could attend, but if I remember the 2000s, I don't really think we had the top.
Where do we place? Which year did the big 3 break out? What was their breakthrough year? Was it that the early 2001, 2002?
Their years
talking about Chameleon
3 years.
concurrently. Their years are concurrent. It is Chameleon 99, Bebe Cool 2000, and Bobby Wine 2001.
Now, before the big 3, there was arguably the big one. It was called Red Banton. I remember Chameleon said, while he was still in Kenya, he had Nonyamani. Was it Nonyamani? Nonyamani was a very big hit.
It is what prompted him to now return.
So he was like, so I'm here with Bebe Cool. Red Banton is
back home,
enjoying all the airplay.
Yeah.
So he returned. Red Banton continued doing his thing. Chameleon returns with what it wasn't Mamma Mia. Mamma Mia became a problem.
Actually, to just cut you a little bit short, the very first plane that Chameleon took was with Red Banton. I think it was to London. Chameleon
at that time Red Banton was a big artist.
Yeah, it was actually it's why Red Banton is now so bitter.
I don't know why Red Banton has not been accorded the legacy he should be accorded.
No, but at least I love that Chameleon has mentioned him in his story.
I think yes, it comes down to longevity. Because when you talk about longevity in the Ugandan music industry, you could mention 2 artists, and in the US you could mention probably 1 rapper. In the Ugandan music industry, the 2 artists could be Spice, Dan, and Bebe Cool. Between 2000 and 2010, when Bebe Cool released Agenze, Bebe Cool never had a top song that you could say was an anthem in Uganda. Like it was always Chameleon, and other people could come and it was always Chameleon. But Bebe Cool was always in the conversation. So his longevity kind of kept him around, that even the people that came and at times did better than him and have not stayed around as long as he has managed to be. Which is kind of the same thing with Spice. It's so hard to remember of 1 year where Spice had the biggest song.
But she has been there.
But she has been in the conversation for all those years, that people that came and had bigger songs than her are no longer in the conversation.
And she's still there.
And she's still in the conversation. Now in the US, that's technically the case of Jay-Z. Like, you cannot think about 1 year where Jay-Z has been the hottest rapper, but he has always been in the conversation.
So consistency and longevity is what defeated Red Banton.
Yeah.
But we speak about Red Banton and the people who started his career. I'm talking about Steve Jean, who produced that music.
Steve produced Nonyamani.
Yes, he produced a lot of.
Steve, is a guy.
So, but Steve had a different touch. We can all agree.
Yeah.
So should we say that the difference in production at that time defined how different that music still sounds even today. Not only for Red Banton, but the music that was produced in that time.
You earlier said when we go to bars and listen to that kind of music, there's a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
Why there's a lot of excitement is because this music is not played every day. You understand? So you go to a certain bar, they play you a Spice Diana song. Today, tomorrow, the other day, the other week. But when you go to a bar and they play you Sigwa and Simira, yeah?
Is it,
Yeah.
is
I
it,
get- I
is
also-
the excitement because the music is not played every day, or because the music was actually good?
Both.
No. And I think the third reason is when you look at the biggest number of people who go to the bars today, when you look at their age range and how old they were at the time, this is music that was released during their young, growing up. So they grew up, this was their time. Two, today they now have some disposable income that they're the guys defining the bar industry, the night industry. So I think that's another reason. But also, the aspect of that music being good is also another one. Probably in the next 20 years, because now for us we are talking of 20 years and this is 2034. Probably in the next 20 years, in 2043, 44, kids will be listening to Chips in a Ketchup of Vink, and they are like 20 years, maybe that will also be their music.
I highly doubt.
Really?
I highly doubt that as well. One, you see, even when you look at outside Uganda and you see the songs they relate to, I think the difference between this music and right now is that people are writing it because of something. There was a reason for them writing that music. Because when you speak to Message right now, he will tell you there was someone who was talking to
Yes.
Yeah, true.
And
They had stories.
The raw emotions that came with it is probably one of the reasons we stayed with them. Truth is, today, people are kind of singing about nothing majorly.
It's beats,
And the other thing is the production those days. I mean, look at people like Steve Jean, look at people like Henry Chihuwa, look at people like Alan Okia, look at Dangoni. People knew what production was.
and also the generation that came after them,
they could
Pademan,
never-
Tony Halls,
Just
to
say,
date.
you understand? They
Yeah.
could give you a
Washington.
song.
And then also, speaking still about the producers, when you look at the catalogue of some of these artists, when you look at,
Look at
even-
Silver Chagulan.
No, even before Get Ready and Wizard, because I wanted to throw in Washington, but even before them, when you look at Chameleon, Bobby Wine, and Bebe Cool, their music from the days, you'll ojawulira nga mulimu touch ya Tony Halls oba Pademan. Nti Pademan yakwata Pademan ne Tony Halls bakwatawo career ya Bobby Wine for emyaka nga 10 nga bebakuba ekintu ekyo. Chameleon naye alina chance mu Pademan, bwowuliriza ennyimba za Chameleon
Of course,
that
even
time.
Bebe Cool.
So bw'otunuulira music waabwe oyo and the discussion we're having today, olaba nga there is also the beat of the producers. It was an entire, it was a combination of all the people at the time, but songwriters, but producers, n'abayimbi bennyini, and probably also the audience.
And of course, new gadgets had started coming in town, so probably we were producing better. Because if you remember, one thing which I think we cannot even bypass, one, the music started sounding better with the way they were producing it. But again, there was another thing of TV. People started actually making videos. Which
East Africa TV.
there was East Africa TV,
WBS.
but then there was WBS with the factor of the Late Show.
Yes.
Because when the Late Show, I happened to watch the first episode of the Late Show. The first episode of the
Who
Late
was
Show.
hosting it? Still Straka.
The first episode of the Late Show played one music video, and the others were stage performances. And when we went to school and came back for holidays, they were still playing that one video and more performances.
What was the video meanwhile?
Which was the video?
You forget it.
Can't remember. But then I remember that as time went on, videos started coming out, and then it went from just being videos, like Clear Cut just came and
Wow. Didak.
was it
Didak.
Paparazzi that
Paparazzi
Paparazzi
Didak.
video?
Ouch.
They did that video of All I Wanna Know. Like first time we saw a Ugandan scene shot underwater, like very cool cars, which I later learned were given to them by Wavamono. Like that video just changed the entire game.
Yeah.
But even you see that it was a very good video, and it stayed on WBS's Let's Show for about a year because there were not very many videos that were coming out.
Okay.
Is that the song that introduced to us Juliana, even though she wasn't in the video?
Was that before Mama Abana and Tata?
Yeah, it was
definitely.
Before. It was before.
That song is, I think, 2001.
Yeah, 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember amongst the local artists, Banaba Band, well as we famously know them, I think the very first video yali ya Lutaye ya Omulunjo Bina.
Was it a graphic video?
Nasanga.
Nasanga was way later.
Nasanga was way later.
Yeah.
Because me, understanding, watching
2005.
those Ugandan. No, it wasn't.
Cause
Nasanga is 2002 or 3.
No.
I remember watching that song in 2003. On
Because
TV.
I think Nasanga came after Olimis.
No. Olimis is on Lutaya's album of, I think, 2005. Olimis is later.
So
Okay.
but anyway, like when we started making more videos, people started copying Straka, and which of course I think gave music a lot of chances to be played.
Okay. Then that generation ushered in Blue 3, Good
Clear
Life a
Cut.
little later. Clear Cut was there before.
Clear Cut
Blue
was
3.
there.
Yeah. Blue 3 also controlled the industry for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
How different what was that special thing about them? What was their X factor?
Steve Jean.
Was it Steve?
Steve
Like
Jean.
Isaac
Then,
said.
but I think the idea of the trio, girl, being three of them and young and fresh, that was another aspect.
I think Steve had worked. You see, the funny thing is, Ugandans do not really get a lot of chances to appreciate Steve for how good he is.
I think one of the reasons is he also doesn't choose to tell his story.
And he will never.
And he will never.
I
Because
think you have come to
because
appreciate that.
it's so hard to imagine Steve Jean produced Doleyo Mwana, and then
And he's the same guy.
and then Steve Jean produced a lot of songs for Titi Tabel, like Nsonyiwa Faza and everything. And then Steve was the same Steve producing songs for Juliana. At
Yali
that time.
diverse, eh?
Yeah, he was very diverse.
Millennium Song.
But then Millennium Song. But I
He
think
produced the Millennium Song only, but he sang in the
he
song.
produced,
produced
the
the
Millennium Song.
Oh.
Yeah, he actually, one thing I heard is it was initially Improlando's idea.
Najid building up.
So he sold it to a brewery. The brewery sold a producer that can do it. They sold Steve Jean. Steve came, looked at the lineup, and he was like,
Nagamba Orlando Guatalina Bam.
he started replacing, and of course
He started being Steve.
He came with his magic, because magic included Juliana. He started building a new team.
Bagamba Steve ke yakola Juliana awo Bush ke yakola Jasmine mu Coke Studio. Yateekayo omuntu waawo.
but you see, the thing is, when Blue 3 came together, I think he found something that he had not really put on the industry, and he
Na
put
building a
it there
concept
and
here.
really lived his life through their music. And because it was different, much as Juliana was singing in English and doing R&B, when Blue 3 came, it was different, right? And
You know-
there's a way we clicked.
I know. The moment I appreciated Steve Jean is that, was it Cindy said during their tours that one time they were on a plane, they had CDs packed up. So Steve is there thinking, why shouldn't I start selling these albums on this plane? He told the girls to start singing.
In the plane.
In the
I think
plane.
I've heard that story.
On the
as well.
yes, on the plane. So they started singing, and ate abazungu bamanyi. Okitegeera, they were like, oh, wow, we have nice voices. By the way, we have CDs, our albums are here. Guess what? All copies were sold on the plane. You understand? So that is how efficient Steve Jean was. That is how particular he was. Okitegeera. Steve Jean's mind, I would say we don't deserve Steve Jean. The things he did in the early 20s.
He was way ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. Like Kagwa said, producing for Sebata, producing for Juliana. Like he was so diverse. You understand? And then he sang also. Like Nagina studio, he stammers. But in the songs, that is one aspect I was like,
he gave us one beautiful album, like,
and that was it.
That was it.
But guys, you realize that in that era, we have not yet started talking about chaos, the fights, all of those things. What kind of discipline was the? Or is it
before
because
you
we
get
just
there,
have
I think there
social
is
media
one
then?
notable person, we're going to go Blue 3 around that time before we move closer to, forward. I think someone worth the mention around that same time of the early 2000s is Sweet Kid.
Yeah,
he's a person you just can't skip talking about around the time.
He was actually very instrumental.
These
there.
Kid Folks, there are a lot of artists.
Yeah,
You
so
just
that's
forget them.
Paul Brenda. Then Michael Rose also there.
One thing you should, why like Steve deserves a lot of talk. Like Steve kind of crafted the Ugandan R&B sound, R&B and hip hop, because at that time he was producing for Clear Cut at times alongside I think Dau.
Yes,
and then he was producing for like Benon, Blue 3, Dorothy Bukira, like I think everyone that came from that talent show of Capital, he did work with them, and that's the sound that later kind of spread to Good Enough when they came and launched here. And I think eventually when Mswangali set up, it was the sound that went on to.
I think the credit that is given to Steve from back in the day, or for the artists of the time, is close to what I could personally give to Jeff Chiwa for the generation of Radiant Weasel, though for him he might not be directly a producer or someone who was, but at least from scouting the talent to having the musical ear to also just having these guys and trying to just sense them and give them platform. And because with the coming of Radiant Weasel from 2008, that entire generation, if you remember, there was a lot of collaboration. Radiant Weasel gave very many artists of that generation collaborations, and that was from a point of Jeff saying, we need to craft our new generation, and if I have these guys and they are shining, let each of these guys coming in just tap onto that.
I've had a story around that. I think Isaac, you've also heard of it, because it's been told by Kasuku. Like apparently, the very first time Radiant Weasel came out and made it, Jeff joined them to have a press conference at which bar is there, like
High Table.
So they had they looked out for young reporters that were also getting into the industry, not the ones that had been around,
not the Seguyas.
So they got the budding ones, and they were like, so you see, you are age mates, you're just getting into this industry just like us.
We should grow together.
Just
imagine that kind of motivation you give someone.
And trust me, that disorganized the industry.
It had to. So guys, I was talking about the fights. Why was that generation of the Blue Threes as they were starting out, the Julianas, the Clear Cut guys, and the people who were around there, the Shanks VVDs, were they just too disciplined, or we just didn't get to know about the fights that were happening?
It's not about the fights. Rotated around 3 artists.
Only
3.
And that's
it wasn't. It
that's
didn't
much
go
later.
beyond.
That's much later.
No.
Did they start out as
Their fight started as early as 2002. The moment all of them now had established themselves and they all had hit songs, the fight started right away.
But you see, one industry and chaos have moved together. The only difference is that these ones added fights to it. Because Kadongo Kamu had its it's bitter rivalry. But
which sometimes involved
Witchcraft.
yes, but they somehow found ways of settling it on stage. Like you do, I also do. Like we bring our audiences together. Achikuba takes the day. But the actual fight you're talking about, I think the way personally I think about it is one, the industry was way too organized for a
And
Bebe
to
Cool,
you would say even to
for a Bebe Cool or a Chameleon to penetrate.
so they had to craft their
So
own kind of
these
style.
guys came with their own kind of style, their own kind of noise, and
No wonder they never wanted to let go. To date, they all, one thing that they all agree upon, that they are the top 3, all of them, at least they agree to that. They all, none of them wants to leave. You see, that guy will never agree with Bebe Cool, but he agrees that we are the top 3. They all agree about it. It's their thing that, and you see, moving on later, you know, in this conversation, we shall talk about, I think, like 8 years later, when now Reddy and Weasel came. In a way, for them, I don't want to say they successfully, or if they successfully
they joined and became 4.
they successfully challenged that top, you know, big 3 kind of dominance. I don't know. I think they did it for about 5 years successfully, because what when Miyake was at 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12 there.
Yes, I think they actually did that by collaborating.
Yes, and
music.
I actually
They
think
had music.
I think where they lost it from, Makatiao, actually I remember, Waliwo Saga at the time of their peak, I think around 2010, is when again Nobe wa Bebe. Saga ya Bebe is when again akubye oluyimba. Ereyo Saga teyajjawo bali abaana. I think Saga endala eyajja bano ba top 3 babenga bakomawo. Is when Bobby Wine, I think, released Katala and bano ne baddamu ekintu kyabwe ekya beef ne bakiza nnyo ne babatopinga bali ne bagwa.
Guys, we are almost ending that show, but I want us to talk about now the birth of the musicians who came from Swangs Avenue. Before it was Swangs, I think it was Moswangali. We had, first of all, the dynamic duo, Benon and Vampos. I think they came out around 2006 when they released.
It was actually earlier, like 3 years before.
Like 3 years before.
When they released Mamulete, something like that. Sazeo came after that, but around the same period. And very good
Actually,
production.
talking about reunions, I think would it be a good one? It's one, I don't know, it might not get the many numbers, but it is a reunion I would love to see.
I talked to Julius. I told Julius that yes, you've been giving us concerts, but there's one concert that I'm looking forward to. It's those 2 guys on stage. Yes, they've been on stage a number of times. They're on stage at Azawi's concert. Then there's a show that happened in Jinja, but you could see the excitement the crowd had when they saw both of them.
They even performed together on
Tascamalt Conversations.
Yeah, but also on one of the
Yes, the excitement is there. And he was like, yeah, it's coming up, but it has never materialized.
I think it's okay. Vinka.
Ejja kujja.
Okay,
but guys, that gave birth to Swangs Avenue. Swangs Avenue, which later gave birth to other musicians. That era gave us a lot of good musicians, some of which I don't know where.
Actually, for me, I think at that time it was more of a culture.
Yeah.
That entire Swangs kind of arrangement.
How did it start? How did it start? Before we go to the actual Swangs Avenue.
When Swangs Avenue shifted from Machindi to Uptown Muyenga, Muyenga was a bit spacious. It's someone's home, someone's house with a garage. So it's the garage that was used as a studio. So Benon used to stay at that house.
In the garage?
No. At that house.
The main
house. Had the main house. He had a room there. These other rooms were offices, then kitchen, lobby, then video room, stuff like that. But because it was so spacious, artists used just to come around to chill around. Just chill. Every artist was welcome. The gates were always open for anyone. So just imagine 5-6 artists all together. Because usually by 5 it was end of business. So they just come.
End of serious business?
Serious business, yes. They come, smoke their weed, take
Drink.
their booze. So, and you know, artists with booze and weed, they
The
become
vibes,
hyper.
yes.
Just Jose was always there to mix and mingle with these guys. So that produced some of these top songs that
The
we did.
collaborations.
The collaborations. Because I remember Jose told me, was it Whistle Song or Mr. DJ? Whistle Song. That Radio went into studio. He was a bit drunk. He started whistling.
Like always.
He started whistling, just whistling. Jose was like, whistle again, and I say, Kademu. He recorded him. So after recording him, Naga, so college, kolayo verse. So after doing his verse, Naga ita whistle. Whistle was outside. Whistle na kola chinajja. Natekamu. Peter Miles was always around. He wasn't at the vicinity, but he was around. So nibagenda nga bakubira buli muntu. Gwe akayinza okujja. Boom.
They have a song.
So the entire idea of that song etandikira ku just Jose radio.
Yes. Oli ya whistlinga just bibye. Okitegeera. Kye tuzzeeyo nti being a good producer teweetaaga just one more trigger.
Something has to trigger.
And then truth is, okay, one, that was partly also driven by Radiant Weasel's love for dominance. Because remember, whenever they released a song with other people, they would hype it up as the biggest song. When they released Mr. DJ, they were like, this is all stars. Whoever is not on this is not a star. and they knew who they were talking to. So it was part of their competitiveness. But then
they knew they were leading this new generation of the stars.
Yes.
So at the end of it all, they were the winning guys at the top.
Yes. But besides that, I think when you think about that, how many artists in there had managers who are like, say, strict management, the way you see Jayla today?
I would say Keiko. Shadrach used to manage Keiko.
At the time.
At the time. No, before Keiko, he used to
Was
manage
Keiko in any
GNL.
of those two songs?
Keiko was later. Remix.
Yes.
But he used to manage GNL.
Shadrach.
Was he managing him at that time?
Yes, he was.
Because one thing I'm thinking is that today, there is a lot of paperwork before I can get Vinca onto a song.
Yeah, true.
Compared, it's like, when you hear those stories, it's like, some of them were dares from Jeff Chiwa, like, can you sing a song about Bicol? And they're like, hey, we can actually do it, and then it happens. Today you would need a lot of paperwork and a lot of phone calls just to get
for me, Chembade Nyara Togereko, ku Muswanga lyawo, we talked about some of the collaborations that came from there, and these guys bawa their other friends collabos. Tunyala tunye mu generation yeyo baani abalimu abafuna collaborations with The Good Life.
I wouldn't dwell it so much on Good Life.
Because actually good life comes later, after there's so much that had happened at Swangzav, Muswangali. I would say actually Muswangali partly gave birth to Good Life. The music they produced.
No, production, then videos as
Video
well.
na Swanga.
Yes, abantu bakulengangawo video. GNL Baboon Forest.
Yeah.
Almost every video.
Olulimba lwa soda jinjale lwawuzi.
Not so before, no, after Soda Jinjari. I'm talking about Baboon.
Yes,
Because Soda was
Baboon,
GNL,
yes.
Sese Tula, Chikankane, ebyo byonna. Abantu bajjanga buzaawo ne bagamba manyi katukole to shooting a video. You know, before Swang's Avenue became so bureaucratic and formal,
With the coming of Julius's English.
No, Julius was there before. He was there
Before he put it a notch higher.
No, but I think Benon had more say, like
at the time.
Yamugama ngomani. So after all that, Julius Naga, tulina okudda back to what? To business. Tulina okukola kasente. Naye bulinga equipments are there, omuntu ajja buzina akola.
Atolimba ne lukuba ne bakola sente
Julius
balinga.
knew the business side of it, and he knew what it means for artists to be there for some time. Like, because I mean, at the end of the day, them being there is the reason why how we ended up knowing about songs. Because trust me, enyimba ezaafubutuka
Zali mpitirivu.
Okumanya zaakutwawo ne Bebe Cool ya recordingirawo oluyimba ne bamupaatira ne video. I've forgotten that.
I remember there was a song, Nobody Move.
Nobody move. Yes. That is the influence of Songs Avenue.
You never know. Bagenda naye omusajja buli tuyitako.
The thing is, when Bebe Cool releases Nobody Move, because at that time we had gotten on social media, so someone asks, well, I thought he was actually in beef with everyone in the industry.
With everyone.
Because no one expected.
So Benon produced that?
Yes. It was Benon and Just Jose.
Just Jose. Man, there are very many stories because now how I get thinking that Just Jose years later gets disconnected from this entire generation and then being totally producing.
Do you know he no longer produces, but do you know that Just Jose started at No End? Yes. It's where he started from. Not producing, but because No End was mainly a one-person army. It was Halima and MD and nothing more.
Waliwo nekirala kyali kyalinga ku No End awo neddiirwa endala zaakutukiranga waawe from music abagala ofuluma wali bagamba yalina ekisa kini abagala ofuluma abaana bazze bali yala biki ebyo abagala okugenda ebweru manya yona. So No End yali nnyo of those other kinds of
side agamba wanti wali business okitegeera. He used to produce one song in like 2 months naga akangendewa.
Guys, we cannot leave this topic without talking about. There's so many stories we can talk about.
But discuss about this topic next week.
But we cannot leave this show without talking about at least Radio and Weasel and Rabadaba, because they also had their time. Early 2008, 2007 from there.
7, 8, 9, 10.
Yes. Who exactly kickstarts the career, specifically for Radio and Weasel?
Chiwanuka.
Was it Jeff Chiwa?
I remember, surprisingly, when radio passed on, I wanted to get an entry point to my story. Like, where did radio come from? I asked around and it seemed like no one knew where radio came from.
No, actually, I think
until Katamba Edwin told me radio was a baba. You understand? Over in Katwe, something like that.
Si Katwe, baitawo Kabowa.
It was around Katwe. It was Ngasala Mbidi. And one of his clients was Chaga.
Wow.
You understand? So asala Chaga enviri ngatandika okuyimba Chaga naga kati by that time Chaga used to back up Chameleon. So Chaga naga naye muvuka goyina eddoboozi ki eddungi lwaki tugenda mu studio lyangu ku introducing ewa Chameleon. Chameleon was a big brand by then. Okay, he's still a big brand. Sorry for that. Chameleon was a big brand, and you
wanted to say bigger brand than he is now.
No, but the excitement radio got when he heard that he was going to be introduced to Chameleon. So ni bamutwale wani ewa Chameleon namuyimbiramu. Chameleon appreciated. So because Weasel is Chameleon's brother, atenga naye ayagala kuyimba. So Chameleon, you could say, started good life.
Okay, interesting. Guys, there's a lot we can talk about this topic.
Chameleon Tandika, at the time, Jeff had a working relationship with Chameleon.
Yes.
The time that radio, the very first time that radio gets to meet the Chameleons.
Yes.
Jeff had a working relationship with Chameleon.
We shall start.
Unfortunately, guys, we
have
spent a lot of time on this topic. There's a lot we still have to talk about.
I think next week
we shall kick off from there next week. There's a lot that we still need to talk about. But we want to thank you for being part of the show and following us. We shall be back next week.